to picture a notification popping up on your phone. It's an email. And the subject line just says, "Can we talk?"
Oh, no.
Right. It's from someone you manage, or maybe a client, or if you're in the world of youth sports, it's from a parent. And immediately your stomach just drops. You know this isn't going to be a chat about the weather. You know you're walking into a room with someone who is emotional, probably irrational, and operating on half the facts.
It's that physical reaction, isn't it? The elevated heart rate before you even open the message.
That is the feeling. And usually my instinct is to either run away or, gear up for a fight. But today we're looking at a source that claims there is a third option.
Okay.
We're doing a deep dive into a document titled Leadership Training for the Coach-Parent Conversations You Dread. And look, I know what that sounds like.
It sounds like a pamphlet for volunteer soccer coaches.
It does. But I started reading this, and honestly, it felt like a manual on high-stakes hostage negotiation. It's surprisingly intense.
It really is. And while the context is technically sports, the whole coach-parent dynamic, what we're really looking at here is, I think, a masterclass in leadership under fire. The source makes a pretty bold claim right up front. It says communication isn't just talking to people. It's not just some administrative task. It is a critical leadership skill.
Which is easy to say, but so hard to do when someone is yelling at you.
Well, that's the whole point. The central argument here is that how you handle those specific dreaded moments that defines your entire leadership. It shapes trust, it shapes culture, and ultimately it shapes the experience of the people you're leading.
So if you can't handle the difficult conversation, you can't lead the team.
That's the argument.
So let's get into the weeds on this, because the title uses that very specific word, dread. It doesn't say conversations you dislike. It says dread. Why? What makes a specific dynamic so uniquely terrible compared to, say, a boss and an employee?
The source actually breaks down the anatomy of this dread. It argues that this isn't just a standard disagreement. There are specific structural factors that make it, well, volatile.
Okay.
And the first one is what I'd call information asymmetry.
All right, lay that out for me.
Think about it. In a workplace, usually you and I are looking at the same spreadsheet, the same data. In this dynamic, the parent is reacting to information they heard secondhand.
Right.
They weren't at practice. They didn't hear the halftime speech. They only know what their child told them happened on the car ride home.
The classic game of telephone.
It's worse than telephone because the child isn't an unbiased reporter. They are the protagonists of their own story, right?
Of course.
So the parent comes in hot, armed with a set of facts that might be totally divorced from reality. And as the leader, you're immediately on the back foot. You're arguing against a narrative you haven't even heard yet.
That feels incredibly unfair. You're being put on trial for a crime that maybe didn't even happen.
Or at least not the way they think it did. That's the friction. But that's only the first layer. The second factor is the emotional baseline. The source points out that for the parent, this is never just a transaction. It involves their child.
The perceived stakes are life and death.
Exactly. It's not, my report is late. It's, you are hurting my child's future. The force calls these perceived threats.
Threats to opportunity, playing time.
Threats to development, yeah. And when human beings perceive a threat to their offspring, the logical part of the brain it shuts off. They go into protection mode.
I found the point about identity really interesting, too. The text mentions a mix of personal identity and performance outcomes.
That's the psychological kicker. We live in a world where a lot of parents and athletes tie their self-worth to performance. So if you, the coach, offer a critique of the kid's footwork,
the parent doesn't hear technical feedback.
They feel an attack on their identity.
Yeah.
It's this volatile cocktail. You have wrong information, high emotion, and an identity crisis all happening at once.
So naturally, the instinct for the coach is self-preservation. Get this person away from me. But the source argues you can't just stiff-arm them.
This is the so what of the entire document. It explicitly states, when communication breaks down here, the athlete feels it, even if they're not in the room.
See, I want to push back on that a little bit. If I have a heated argument with a dad in the parking lot and the kid is already in the car with headphones on, do they really feel it, or is that just something we say to make ourselves feel important?
The source argues that they absolutely do. Maybe not in that specific second, but think about the training environment the next day. If the coach is resentful of the parent, that changes how we look at the player. If the parent is trashing the coach at the dinner table, that changes how the player listens at practice. You can't compartmentalize it.
Attention leaks.
It leaks. So the kid is essentially living in a house divided. The source frames it as, leading the conversation well is actually about protecting the environment the athlete has to live in.
Okay, so we know the stakes, we know why it sucks, now I want the tactics. The source pivots to a how-to section, and it starts with a mindset shift that I think is pretty difficult. It says the goal isn't to win the argument.
No, if you go in trying to win, you've already lost.
But wait, if I'm the leader and I made the right decision, don't I want to win. I want them to admit I'm right and go away.
I mean, that's the ego talking. The source says the goal is to lead the conversation.
What's the difference?
Winning an argument usually involves dominating the other person or proving them foolish. Leading a conversation means steering it toward a productive outcome. Those are two very different finish lines.
To help us do that, the text gives us these 4 balances. It's a this, not that framework. And I want to drill into these because I think this is where most of us get tripped up.
For sure.
The first one is clarity without defensiveness.
And this is the hardest one for most people. When someone challenges your authority, the natural human instinct is to defend, to over-explain.
Well, I made that substitution because X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. You start justifying yourself. And it sounds like you're asking for permission. The source suggests that true leadership is stating the decision clearly, but stopping short of that desperate need to convince them you're right.
So it's the difference between saying, here is the standard we set for the team versus a 5-minute monologue about why you're a good person.
Clarity is confident.
Yeah.
Defensiveness is just noisy.
That leads right into the second balance. Boundaries without disengagement. Now, my preferred boundary is do not talk to me. Is that what they mean?
I think many of us wish that was the case. But no, the source says you cannot disengage from the relationship. You can't just ghost the parent or shut them down completely.
Because that destroys trust.
Totally. Instead, you have to set boundaries within the relationship. So it sounds like saying, I am willing to discuss this with you, but I will not continue this conversation if you are yelling.
Or, I'm available to talk on Tuesdays, but I won't respond to texts at 10 p.m.
Right. You're
Right.
still there. You're still leading, but you're defining the terms of engagement.
Okay, that makes sense. You're not closing the door, you're just putting a lock on it. The third one is empathy without over-accommodation.
This is a trap for the nice leaders, the ones who want to be liked.
Guilty.
You can understand a parent's frustration. You can say, I can see why you're disappointed that your son isn't starting. That's empathy. But over-accommodation is saying, okay, well, maybe I can squeeze him in for a few more minutes.
So you validate the feeling, but you hold the line on the decision.
You have to separate the emotion from the outcome. If you start changing your decisions just to soothe someone's feelings, you lose the respect of the entire team.
And the last balance ties it all together. Confidence without ego.
Ego screams, I'm the boss. Confidence is quiet. It's knowing you made the decision based on your values and being willing to just stand there and take the heat without falling apart.
Those balances are great, but they're conceptual. The source also gives us 5 core skills. These felt a bit more like the nuts and bolts.
The actual mechanics, yeah.
And the first one is clarity again, but it's specific about the timing.
This is the preventative medicine. The source emphasizes providing clarity before the issue arises.
This is where most of us fail, right? We wait until there's a problem to explain the rule.
And by then, it just looks like an excuse. If you explain your philosophy on playing time at the preseason meeting, it's a policy. If you explain it while a dad is screaming at you after a loss, it sounds like you're making it up on the fly to cover your tracks.
So front load the difficult info.
Yeah?
Okay, skill number 2 is emotional regulation. And the source has this great line. Parents often mirror the emotional tone you set.
That's the thermostat principle. If you walk into that meeting room with high anxiety or anger or defensive energy, the parent is going to pick up on that and match it. You will escalate each other.
But let's be real here. If someone comes at me attacking my integrity, I'm going to get mad. How is a leader supposed to just regulate that away?
You don't regulate it away. You manage the expression of it. The source argues that the person with the most emotional control in the room holds the power. If they were at a 10 and you stay at a 4, eventually they have to come down to meet you. If you go to an 11, you've just created a chaos spiral.
So staying calm isn't about being nice. It's about tactical control.
It's a power move.
Skill number 3, listening without reacting.
This addresses what I call the rebuttal brain. You know when someone is talking and you aren't really listening?
You're just waiting for a gap.
You're just waiting for a gap in the noise so you can launch the speech you've been writing in your head. I do it too. We all do.
Constantly.
The source demands that you stop that. You have to actually seek to understand their concern. Is it about safety? Is it fairness? Is it just confusion before you explain anything? Because often what you think they are mad about isn't the actual issue.
And if you explain the wrong thing, you just make it worse.
You're answering a question they didn't even ask.
Skill number 4 is boundaries, but specifically regarding scope, the source says, knowing what is open for discussion and explicitly what is not.
This is critical for saving time and sanity. A leader needs a script for this. For example, I am happy to discuss your child's behavior, their attitude, and their work ethic. But I will not discuss other athletes, and I will not discuss game strategy.
Having that list in your pocket seems like a lifesaver. Because otherwise, the conversation drifts into, well, what about Johnny? He dropped the ball too.
And the moment you answer that, you've lost. You're now discussing another kid with a parent who has no right to that info. You have to kill that thread immediately.
Finally, skill number 5, consistency. Align what you say privately with what you communicate publicly and what you model daily.
This is the trust bedrock. You can have all the skills in the world, but if you tell a parent, we value sportsmanship, and then you scream at the referee during the game,
Your words mean nothing.
your behavior overrides your manual.
Hmm.
It's the dreaded do as I say, not as I do. It never works in leadership.
Okay, so we've beaten up on the coaches a bit here. We've given them a lot of homework. But the source takes a really interesting turn in the final section.
It does.
It's titled, For Parents Who Are Reading.
I thought this was a brilliant inclusion. It acknowledges the reality that parents aren't the enemy. They are part of the ecosystem, and they are reading this training too.
It introduces the concept of the triangle, the coach-parent-athlete triangle.
Visually, it's just perfect. If one point of that triangle disconnects, if the parent undermines the coach or the coach dismisses the parent, the structure collapses.
Then who falls?
The athlete in the middle.
The source defines the parent's job in a way that I think might be surprising to some helicopter parents out there. It says, your role is not to replace the coach, but to support the environment the coach is creating.
That's a heavy distinction. Support the environment. That doesn't mean you have to agree with every play call.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't be frustrated, but means you don't burn down the stadium. You support the structure so your kid can learn within it.
It lists 4 pillars for an effective parent-coach relationship. I feel like we should print these out and hand them to every parent at the start of the season.
Let's run through them. First, shared commitment to athlete growth. We have to agree that the goal is for the kid to get better.
Which seems obvious, but sometimes it feels like the goal is make my kid the star.
And that's where the conflict starts. The second pillar is respect for roles and boundaries. The coach, coaches, the parent.
Parents. Simple enough. Third is open, calm, and timely communication.
The word timely is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Don't let your anger fester for 3 months and then explode in the finals. If there is an issue, bring it up early and calmly.
And finally, a long-term perspective on development.
This is the hardest one in our instant gratification culture. Parents want results now. The source is reminding us that development is a long, messy game.
And if we can align on that,
If we can, the text says the result is that athletes feel safer, more confident, and more supported.
and really that's the payoff. We aren't doing all this work just to have pleasant meetings. We're doing it so the kid can actually play freely.
Exactly. When the adults in the room are stable, the kid feels safe. When the adults are at war, the kid is anxious. It's that simple.
As we wrap this up, the source leaves us with a reflection for this week. And I love that it puts the mirror up to both sides. It's not letting anyone off the hook.
For the coaches, or any leader listening, the question is, how do I typically show up in difficult parent conversations? And what skill would most improve those interactions?
I think for me, it's that rebuttal brain. I'm always trying to win the debate instead of just hearing the concern.
It's a common one. And for the parents listening, the question is, how does my communication support or unintentionally undermine my child's development and coach's leadership?
That unintentionally part is tough to swallow. I don't think any parent wakes up thinking, I'm going to undermine my kid today.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
They think they are helping.
Mm.
They think they are advocating. But if that advocacy looks like undermining the coach's authority, they are actually teaching their child to disrespect leadership.
Yeah.
They are sabotaging the very growth they want to see.
The source sums it all up with this final thought. Leadership isn't just how you coach athletes. It's how you lead the adults around them, especially when it's hard.
It really reframes the job description. If you thought coaching was just X's and O's, you're missing half the gig. Managing the ecosystem is the job.
My biggest takeaway from this isn't even about sports. It's that the source calls communication a craft. It says communication is a craft. Practice it.
That's the hopeful part, I think. Dread usually comes from feeling unskilled. We dread things we aren't good at.
That's true.
If you view this as a craft, something you can drill just like a free throw, then the dread starts to fade. You aren't a victim of the conversation, you're a practitioner of it.
So the next time I get that "can we talk" email, instead of panic, I should look at it as we're on a scrimmage.
Look at it as reps. You're getting your reps in leadership.
Try to remember that while my palms are sweating. This has been a really tactical look at something we usually just complain about. Thanks for breaking it down.
Always a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, whether you're the coach or the parent, good luck with your reps this week. We'll see you on the next deep dive.